we'd like to get started because, as you know, it's a full afternoon, a full time thing. I want to introduce Eileen from Push. Right?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate everybody showing up, and I really appreciate Martin Hutchison for agreeing to moderate this forum. This is an important election, and we have a huge number of candidates, and it's definitely a challenge to get to figure out who these candidates are. So we have so many candidates that we had to have a very strict format for today. Wycomico Push for Education is an organization that I'm part of, and we advocate for increased investment in education in our county. Many of you are probably aware that we are investing less than we did 12 years ago in education. We are 23 of 24 counties for our per pupil investment in our county, 23 of 24. So our work mainly lies with the county council and the county executive to advocate for our children. At the front of the room, you'll find important dates for the election. Primary election is July 19th. Everything you need to know about voting by mail, early voting, how to find your precinct, make sure you're registered. And independents, unaffiliated people can vote in the primary election. I also wanted to just make a pitch for Meals on Wheels. If you could leave a donation. I've already seen some really generous donations. They've been hard hit and had much increase in demand recently. And also thank Philip LeBlanc for paying for this room. LaBelle. I've never met this person, but they donated this room for us. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to all the PUSH volunteers to help make this possible, and for PAC 14 being here, and WSCL, and Pastor Martin, who agreed to moderate. We're so grateful. So thank you very much, and I'm going to hand it over to Martin.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2022 Board of Education Candidate Forum. My name is Martin Hutchison. I wear many hats in our community, and one of the ones I am proudest of is being a Kindness Commissioner with Kind SBY. And today I am honored to be the moderator of this forum. I've been a lifelong supporter of all of those in the educational adventure. Thank you to the 14 of 22 candidates for Wycomico County Board of Ed who were able to join us today. We look forward to getting to know you better. Thank you too for stepping up to serve in what I think is one of the most critical roles in our community, as you support all those in education. Finally, I want to thank Wicomico Push for Education and MAC for designing and hosting this forum. Before we begin, a few rules and a little bit about the process. A volunteer sitting to my left will hold a yellow warning at the 30-second mark and a red warning at the 10-second mark. Then you will hear an audible sound when your time is up. Please adhere to the allotted time frame. When your time is called, finish your sentence and kindly stop. I will cut you off if I need to, kindly, but I'd rather not. Please don't interrupt another. You have 3 minutes to introduce yourself, and we would love for you to include your top 3 priorities. Should you get elected, and we would like proposed solutions in making those priorities a reality. Remember, this is a forum. It is not a debate. Please refrain from attacking other candidates. We are here to learn about you and your solutions and your vision. Each candidate will get a question generated from the audience and have 2 minutes to respond to that question. Following that, any panel member may use their pink follow-up pass to respond to the same question, again, with 2 minutes. Each member may use their follow-up pass 1 time, but after that one use, you're done. In summary, each candidate will get both an audience-generated question and an opportunity to answer a question that was asked of another candidate, which means each of you will get 2 questions and 2 minutes to respond to those questions. Because of the size of the field, 14 of the 22 with us today, the group has been broken into 3 panels. You have before you the at-large candidates that are here today. Then we will have District 1 and 2 candidates that were able to join us today. And then we will have District 3, 4, and 5 candidates that were able to join us today. With that said, let the forum begin, and we will start in alphabetical order. Yes. So,
I guess
Mr.
that's
Demko,
me.
you have
Yes.
3 minutes for an introduction.
Thank you. And I'd also extend my thanks to Eileen and to Mac and to Mr. LaBelle for arranging this. So, George Demko, in my 3 minutes. My family and I came to Salisbury 48 years ago because I had taken a position as Director of Microbiology and Director of Microbiology at PRMC. And I was also instructor as an adjunct instructor in a new program that SU was developing in the medical technology field. So my responsibilities in that position included managing the microbiology department at PRMC, teaching medical technology, microbiology for SU, and also consulting with the nurses and medical staff on infection control matters and diagnosis and treatment of infectious disease. After 27 years in that position, I left it. I went back to school, went to SU, joined a TESOL program, that's Teaching English as a Second Language. Got my master's degree, got a job teaching in public schools, did that for 5 years, mostly in elementary, a little bit of middle. When I retired from there, I continued to volunteer for a couple of years in the schools, mostly at Pinehurst. And I also worked for SU supervising student teachers. So I have some knowledge of the classroom. As far as my leadership roles, I have had leadership roles in my church, and I've been on the board of the public library for the past 11 or 12 years. My priorities, my overriding goal is for students to have good outcomes in safe, inclusive classrooms, and to be everyone in the schools, teachers, parents, children, staff, to be treated with dignity and respect. My priority is to develop and implement the Kerwin Blueprint for Maryland's future, especially continued expansion of pre-K. When I was teaching at Pinehurst, probably 15 years ago now, there was very few pre-K opportunities. They were half-day. Now we have full-day pre-K at 10 of 11 schools for 4-year-olds and 5 schools for 3-year-olds. This is great, and they're all-day pre-K. So I want to expand that. Right now it's 800. I want to get more students involved in that because it's important to have kids ready to start kindergarten. Oh, sorry. My other priority is career pathways. Kids are able to get into career pathways now in high school when they're in 11th grade. I want to move that down to 10th grade at least, and I want to improve the transition from pre-professional training to colleges. Third priority, I want to improve the work environment for teachers and the salaries for teachers. I want to reach the Kerwin goal of $60,000 per year for starting teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Demko. Dr. Ennis?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Bonnie Ennis, and I'm currently the supervisor of school improvement for Wycomico County Public Schools. Well, at least until June 30th, when I will retire with 44 years of experience within the school district. During that time, I have had a lot of different roles, and even though I'm retiring, I feel I still have a great deal to offer the school district. And that is why I chose to run for one of the at-large positions for Board of Ed. Before I tell you more about myself and my goals as a board member, I'd like to ask you to consider what are your goals? What do you want for our school system? What do you want for the students of Wycomico County Public Schools? What do you want for their teachers? What do you want for your families? What are your priorities? I began the classroom 1978 as a classroom teacher at Del Mar Elementary School, teaching 5th grade students, primarily U.S. history, Mr. Palmer. And in teaching those students, my priority at the time was the academic achievement of those students, those 100 plus students that passed through my doorway every day. My goal was to be the best teacher I could be for them and provide them with the best instruction so that their academic achievement was the best it could be. For the families of those students, I wanted them to trust that I could deliver that instruction. I wanted them to trust that their child was being given every opportunity in a safe environment. The word safety has a whole new meaning this week. The tragic events of Texas naturally bring to mind one of the greatest priorities that every school district should have, and that is the safety of our students. And that should be and is a goal of Wycomico County Public Schools. The priorities stayed with me throughout my 26 years as a teacher. 26 years at Del Mar, moving there from there to Fruitland Intermediate, then to North Salisbury, and finally at Salisbury Middle School. I moved to administration 18 years ago, first as the coordinator of mathematics instruction for elementary mathematics. My priorities broaden now to include the 6,000 plus students and their teachers in Wycomico County and their academic achievement, and for those teachers to ensure that they had the resources that they needed. 7 years ago, I took the current position that I have as supervisor of school improvement, and now, once again, my priorities have broadened K through 12. Throughout my academic career, academic achievement is first and foremost in my mind, and it will continue to be first and foremost in my work as a board member, should I be elected. I would also encourage increased transparency of student data, behavior data, and academic data for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Then we get the last paragraph.
Good afternoon. Hopefully you guys can hear me. My name's Aaron Guy, and to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a proud Salisbury native of two deeply rooted families here in this community, Guy Farms Produce and Banks Markets. I left here in 2003 to serve in the war in Iraq as a Marine, and I did nuclear weapons security in that time, so I'm definitely intimate with security knowledge, which is a critical part right now. When I returned to the shore in 2010, I attended Warwick Community College, and then I graduated my 4 years bachelor's degree from Salisbury University, so I'm alumni. Post-college, I worked for a financial technology company as a consultant, traveling around, still living in Salisbury for 4 years. And then 4 years ago, I came on as the Director of Community Partnerships for Pohanka of Salisbury, which is a loyalty program that gives back to people that are paying it forward in this community. And I'm thankful to work with over 200 local partners in serving them and hooking them up on vehicles. But in that time, I was able to serve on the board for Junior Achievement of the Eastern Shore here. And for those that aren't familiar, their mission statement is workforce readiness, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy, which is really critical in our schools. I also serve on the board of directors for the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce and support our small business community. I also, in the last 4 years, have served on the Education Network, and that's a network that represents all of our educational institutions where people come together and they share best practices, they talk about their successes, their challenges, and then we communicate back to the community and try to get the word out about what's actually happening in our education institutions. And so also I'd just like to share that one of my biggest drivers for running for this position is that I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old daughter, Evelyn and Lillian, and my 5-year-old starts public school this fall, at the same time hopefully I'm elected. And I think that as candidate Demko talked about, with Blueprint and the visibility and engagement from Annapolis pushing these initiatives, early education is one of their biggest pillars. And I think that it brings a nice balance to the Board of Education to have a parent that also gets to see real time any sort of policy implemented for early education as well. Also, as I spoke about in my job for Pohanka, collaboration is really important to me. That's one of the things that I think that Wycomico has some challenges, but we also have an incredible amount of potential. And I think admitting some of these challenges helps us to seek help. And I think that in order for our community to re-engage and to get parents active again, I'm of the philosophy that it takes a village. And so I'd like to bring SBY Kind, more organizations, civic, business, and community together to support our schools in the future, as well as career pathways for our students and to support our teachers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Murray.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Murray. I also would like to thank everyone for making this possible for this forum this afternoon. I appreciate it. Just a brief thing about me. As my background, I am a lifelong citizen here in Wycomico County. I graduated from Y High School, and I worked some summers at the Wycomico Teen Adult Center when Holly Center was implemented, when it was being built and designed. I was a part of that. I have a career of 35 years as a teacher, vice principal, and principal of schools. The schools that I had, can you hear me? Okay. Okay. The schools that I was principal of gave a wide variety of not just a regular elementary or school. I was principal of Howard T. Ennis, which is an all-special school. My 35 years were in Delaware. When I graduated from undergraduate school was in Tennessee, and I decided to come back to Maryland, here in Salisbury, where I grew up. So in August, most of the jobs were filled. So I started at Del Mar, and my 35 years career were in Delaware. I also had the Richard Allen School, was an alternative school where I was principal. I have always been very active in our community, and I'm a listening person for many years and belong to many organizations. Some of the items as a current board member that we have gone through and are continuing to go through and moving forward with the blueprint, and that word you've heard earlier from two of the candidates is very true. My first and most important, with the academic loss of some of our students encountered this past year and year and a half to 2 years, is something that we must regain. We have to do it. And I'm looking at extra services and money appropriated to make these services happen, staffing and things. Our staff, our teachers, have actually gone way beyond the call of duty during this time. They too need some assistance and things in helping. I think it's extremely important that money appropriates for services for them as well as the students. The second thing is that we are encountering in our world today that all of us know in this room is entirely different from the time we went through life and are still. And that is an increase in counseling with some mental services for all. And I'm talking about students, staffing, parents, and community, and understanding, time, and reaching out to all. And of course, the third one is the safety. Safety is so important today, and everyone knows that. Different avenues. I personally would like to see an officer in every school, resource officer in every school that we have in this county. Thank you for the opportunity.
Ms. Siggers?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here to share our vision and to hopefully engage you with what those visions are. I am not a native of the shore, but I've been here for a good long time. I am retired from the State of Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, actually from Holly Center. And I have served on numerous boards and what have you here and there, but that's not what I'd like to highlight right now. I served as a volunteer with a community organization called Education Advocates prior to getting involved with the school as a substitute teacher. Through Education Advocate, we served as a community group, as a liaison between the community and the school. I worked on a particular board with the Wycomico County Board system with the Minority Affairs Committee. Through that committee, we had the state of Maryland to come down and do an evaluation of the Wycomico County Board of Education school system. from that study, we have some programs that are still alive and well in our school system today, being responsible for homeschool liaison, for instance, and in-school suspension, where you allow the kids an opportunity to get it together in school rather than having to send them home on such a regular basis. Many times parents were working and not able to be there when their kids were dismissed from school. So there have been some benefits to having the community involved with what the school is doing to help enhance those opportunities. As a volunteer and as a homeschool liaison person, or as the community rep, I also implemented the first countywide mentoring program called Mr. Men Inspiring Students to Enjoy Reading. And as a result, went on to help Henrietta Parker develop the Wicomico County Mentoring Project. And those are other opportunities to incorporate the public, the community, into the education system. And I think that's one of the things that we have to do. I am concerned particularly about the safety in our schools. I believe that we have come to the point where we have to be proactive. We need to get metal detectors in our schools. We need to have parents and family members to become more involved in our schools. We need to build strong team efforts. I believe that teamwork will make schools work, and we have to have them to come into the school on some level to help us make school function for the whole community. We have a conversion.
Thank you, Ms. Siggers.
Sure.
So now we move to the question part of our forum, and I'm going to ask the audience to hold their applause to the end because that's taking valuable time away from us, so thank you. This is for Mr. Demko, and the question is, what is social emotional learning, and why do you think it does or does not have a place in public education in Wycomico County?
Thank you for that. I think social emotional learning is critical, frankly, especially in the age of where the kids have been out of school for 2 years. They have to readjust to their school environment. That's what social emotional learning is all about. When I was teaching at Pinehurst 15 years ago, we had a reader. I think it was for 3rd or 4th graders. It was about the friendship that developed between Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reese, who was the captain of the Brooklyn Dodgers, when Jackie Robinson came up with the Dodgers. And that relationship was critical to Jackie Robinson's success. That was an example of social emotional learning 15 years ago. So this is not a new phenomenon, but it's an especially important thing right now, I think. Because we have a lot of mental illness, and kids need that social and emotional help.
Thank you, Mr. Demko. Anybody else want a shot at that one?
I will. I'll use my pink
You're gonna
card.
use your pass.
Use my
There you
pass.
go.
Yes. I have to agree with Mr. Demko on that. I have watched many of the restorative circles in our classrooms. And those restorative circles give our students an opportunity to talk to one another face to face. Our students are not talking to one another on a regular basis. They're texting one another. They're communicating, but they are not conversing. To sit in a U.S. history class, engaging groups of students, trying to get them to debate each other on a topic, the teacher working as hard as they can, is very difficult because the students are not able to engage in that face-to-face conversation. So the restorative circles, that social emotional learning, is key to getting them back into a mode of being in an instructional environment where they are talking to one another, where they are talking to the teacher, and they are communicating face to face. So yes, I think it is critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So Dr. Ennis, this is your question.
Okay.
As a retired teacher, I'm all in for increased parental involvement. However, I am concerned that many would want to use this as a vehicle for censorship of curriculum and library books. What are your thoughts on this matter?
We have a process in Wycomico County. We have a process, we have a policy, we have a procedure for how to handle books, how to handle new material. We have COMAR regulations that stipulate the necessary sharing of information with parents prior to instruction taking place. We have a website that allows a place for us to share new information that is coming up for students as far as instructional materials go. As far as banning books, if in the process of following through with a procedure that is in place, the group that was elected to or appointed to go ahead and look through that process decides that this is not a book that we have, we've followed the procedure. That procedure is there for a reason. And if the procedure is no longer working, then we need to take a look at rewriting that procedure to make it work for current times. I am not in favor of banning books without going through a proper procedure to see whether or not it is developmentally and age appropriate, or if there are some other reasons why that particular book should not be used. But we already have a procedure and process in place. Let's use it.
Thank you. Anyone else want a shot at that question? Hold your applause, please. Thank you. Kindly hold your applause. Thank you. Mr. Guy, this is your question. Do you support teachers reflecting the challenges and rewards of racial diversity in America, including an accurate account of the role racism played in our history?
Yeah, I think that history is an important piece to learn from, and I think that accurate representation of anything that we have. I mean, I think seeking truth, is a critical part. That honestly, school, all of the different curricula challenges that we have in the community, a lot of times you're teaching kids how to learn, and also these kids have access to all of the information in the world. That's our generation, and so. Censorship, things like that, you can protect them, you want to keep them safe, but really ultimately I think our goal is to educate kids on the closest to the truth and accuracy that we can for historic data, and helping kids decipher what's real and not real is really, I think, the skills that they're going to need for them to have successful futures in our community. So.
Thank you. Anyone else like to answer that question? Mr. Demko.
You gonna use your pass?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't have to pay for my hand, but yes, I'm using my pass. Yeah, I think we are a great country. We need to present our history accurately. We need to teach our kids about critical thinking. The only way they can learn to think critically is by having an accurate representation of our history, the goods, the bads, and the uglies. Now, that doesn't mean that I think any student should be uncomfortable in the classroom. And I don't think any student alive today needs to feel guilty for what happened 100 or 200 years ago. This is not about making kids feel guilty. There's no reason for that. But I think we have to accurately teach our history.
Good point.
Thank you. Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Here's your audience question. What are the best ways to address school safety and create a safe environment for all children, and what does the research say?
Well, research says many different things, and it does change every day depending on the situation. But I think one of the most important avenues to instruct this safety starts at our schools with our children, with our staff, and with our parents and community. Because children see a unity and understanding the protection. All of us, unfortunately, saw last week that horrible picture of children running out of school, of the gunshots. What a horrible vision that has left in my mind. And I think instruction and working together as a team effort, and the resource officers being there, being available, a plan which we do have in Wycomico County Schools, but that plan also has to be altered and practiced periodically throughout as time changes in safety. Precautions with the doors, being locked, pushing the buttons coming in, the ID, all of that. I'm even much more in favor of metal type protectors on the doors as you walk through. We have to do that, and children and parents need to work together and comfort with the staff to see that this is happening. That's the most important thing that has to happen.
Thank you. Anyone else want to take a shot at that? Aaron?
Yeah,
Mr.
so,
Riley?
I think we all know safety is critical to our students, and doing nuclear weapon security and being in situations that look like, the Rock with double rabbit run fences and entry control points. I had a neighbor recently say, we need to put barbed wire around the trailers at Parkside schools. It's like, I think that there needs to be a balance. I think one way in, one way out after drop off, things like that. There are security measures and processes in place that can keep them safe. But I definitely think we need to be careful with how militaristic we get with protecting our kids, because we also don't want them to feel an ominous threat every day they come to school. We want them to feel protected and to feel safe. But I think that we need to be mindful of a balance between those things. And I think, like I talked about prior, is I believe that there's more good people than there are bad people in this community. And I think that the more engagement of people participating, the more eyes we have on students, the more people that we have active with our schools. I think that that's a really great security measure for prevention steps in order to get there for our students as well. So.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. Anyone else?
Yes.
Ms. Siggers?
Yeah, I believe that security and safety is one of the greatest threats that our schools are facing right now, from within and without. There are times when students can't use the restroom during the school day because the restrooms are locked. There are students who are hiding guns there. There are things going on in the restrooms, I'm told from students, that prevents them from going in there to use the restroom. There has even been a student just stepped outside of the school door and defecated. And you can see it, because the bathrooms are locked during the day. They can't get in there for safety reasons and for other reasons as well. So I think that what we need to do, I would like to see people hired to be hall monitors. That's their purpose. They don't have to man the classroom. They don't have to come from the office and other places to take on an extra duty, trying to get kids to and from classes. There needs to be designated hall persons who can also maintain safety for the restrooms, for the stairwells, for the hallways. And that would help the teachers maintain their areas that they have to maintain for safety. I would like to see students' IDs be a tool of checking in, to be able to check in, like to do your gold card, to be able to, you can even do attendance with that. There is so much chaos during the course of transition, during the course of a school day, that to find a way to modify the yellow sign, it's such a distraction sometimes. But I think that we do need to have metal detectors. I don't think it's too much too soon. We are at that point where we have to be proactive.
Thank you. And so you have your audience-generated question. Do you support raising teacher, paraeducator, teacher's aides, special education aide pay, and why or why not? And should these be budget priorities?
Please do. There is such a challenge for these teachers. Let me tell you, when they show up in the morning, they don't just show up to teach. They become firefighters. They're putting out fires from the time they hit the schools to the time they leave. They ought to be able to come in and do their job and have some of themselves left over for their own families when they leave there. They give so much. Whatever they're being paid is not enough in all of those capacities. So I would ask, somehow, some way, make sure that budget is supportive of our teachers, of our aides, of our administrators. They're so needed. They're given a good service. Not only that, make sure there is an atmosphere that is safety for our teachers, for our administrators, for our school employees, because they have families to go home to. Many of them are young families. They're just starting their families. They ought to be able to invest in school and invest in home as well. So This is one of the greatest institutions in our society, our education system. Please invest in it. We have a lack of teachers. There have been many times when I've been asked, can you take over this class, because the teachers just walked out. You know, that's been a veteran teacher, that's been a newcomer. We need to be able to invest and provide the assistance and the support in pay and in physical means for our teaching, for the school atmosphere, for the whole education system, and particularly for our aides. Our aides.
Thank you, Ms. Siggers.
Yes.
And thank you to our panel. Now you may clap. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your at-large candidates that were able to join us today. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Now we're going to transition to Districts 1 and 2 candidates. You have before you the District 1 and 2 candidates that were able to join us today. And so to begin with, we're going to start in alphabetical order again, and you'll get 3 minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself and a lot about your priorities and your vision for the Board of Education. Mr. Angelot?
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Luke Angelot. I'm a first-generation Haitian American, and most importantly, I'm a recent graduate. I graduated from Y High in 2021. So the reason why I chose to run, I wanted to bring youth, I wanted to bring a younger voice to the board, a student's point of view. That's what I have in my brain. When I look at issues facing the school, I see it how a student would see it. On my website, I have my detailed plan on my policies, but in summary, I have a 3-part plan. My plan is to refresh the board with new ideas. And I've heard actually some of my ideas were said by the at-large candidates. But my number one priority is the mental health crisis that we're facing. I have a 3-part plan in that on how to address that. But that was sort of what really pushed me to run. I'll look at my sources later. I forgot the exact place I realized this, but only 45% of Gen Z report their mental health as being good or excellent. So that means majority feel as if their mental health is not good. So that's my number one priority. I would also like to make sure we attract teachers and keep the teachers we have, whether it be through pay raises or pay raises or other forms to do that. I also wanted to introduce a financial literacy class and make that a graduation requirement so that we can make sure that all our students are prepared to compete in the 21st century economy. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll allow clapping after the introductions. And we'll kindly refrain from it.
Martin runs a tight ship.
Mr. Brown?
Good evening, and thanks everyone for being here and the facilitators for the program. Again, my name is Alan Brown. I'm a lifelong resident of Wycomico County. I'm a product of the Wycomico County public school system. The school system allowed me to have a 40-year career, and when I went off to college, I was well prepared because of what had happened to me in the school system here. It afforded me the opportunity to come back and give back to the people who helped me along the way. In serving for the Wycomico County Board of Education, I am very pleased to say that after 40 years, I continue to see that education is one of the most important things to have in our community as well as anywhere else. Currently, I am a member of a number of different boards, and I feel that I owe all the community those kinds of things. In fact, in walking in this building, I was in here last Wednesday because I deliver Meals on Wheels, so I'm very familiar with the process here. I have 3 goals in mind. My first one is like everyone else, or most people in here, school safety. After seeing what's happening over the last decade, it is imperative that we do all that we can to make certain that our schools are safe for our kids to come to school. Currently, we have resource officers in most of our high schools, in all of our high schools and most of our middle schools. I'd like to see that extended to the elementary schools. And the reason I said it, it's like having that person in the building is a deterrent. Think about yourself. Every time you're driving down the highway and you see a police officer or a car, you slow down automatically, whether you're driving the speed limit or not. So that's what an officer can do. And when I was in school, the only time we saw a police officer when we were having a career day. A second goal would be to establish a full-day program for all kids. Right now, we're kind of limited to the number that we can have, but if we have early education for all these kids, it gives them a level playing field to start off their high school, their years in school as well. A third goal I would have was to maintain and recruit the best possible people for our schools. I'm not only talking about teachers, I'm talking about the support personnel as well, the custodians, the cafeteria workers, the maintenance men. All those people it's like a wheel with spokes in it. Any one of those with a weak link, that wheel's not going to roll as smoothly as it normally would. So therefore, having the best possible teachers and individuals in our school system would be the thing to do. The answer to that is to grow our own. One of the things I'd like to see is that we look around our schools and find out some of those kids who want to be school teachers and say to them, you go to school, you become a teacher, we will help finance you. When you come back to us, we'll certainly have you for a job for you, working at least 3 years for us. And I think we have them working for 3 years, we'll have them hooked, and they will be here to continue to give back to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. After Mr. Brown, this is not a good time to make this comment because you could hear everything he said, but I'm hearing from the audience that they're not hearing you well. So if you would kindly move the mic in front of you when you speak and then back away when you're not. Thank you. Ms. Groves, tell us about yourself.
Yes, my name is, can you all hear me? My name is Kimberly Groves, and I'm running for District 2. And I want to say, Mr. Brown, thank you for calling me out for the police officer thing. I am a lifelong resident of Wycomico County, having been brought up in her schools from Fruitland Primary to Fruitland Intermediate, Bennett Middle, Bennett Senior, and then on to SU, earning my bachelor's and master's degree here. I did have a 13-year lapse of service when I was drug off by my husband to Lynchburg, Virginia, and then on to Florida. My three main priorities are school safety. They've always been that, not just in light of the recent tragedy in Texas. School safety and bullying. I would like to see a resource officer in every school, and actually 2 resource officers in every school. I'd like us to have a comprehensive threat assessment done on every single school in Wycomico County by an outside contractor. And I'd like to review and revamp our anti-bullying program. I'd like to see curriculum transparency where we post basic lesson plan frameworks, because I had to do it as a teacher, with all proposed assignments so that parents can see exactly what their child is doing. This also makes it easier if a child is out sick for an extended period of time. That way, they don't have so much work to make up. They can download it, print it out, whatever, do it, and not be overwhelmed when they come back. Also, financial transparency. Have a comprehensive forensic audit performed to make sure and identify any areas of concern. Just make sure everything's where it should be. And have teachers teach their content and stop making them inject therapy sessions and become counselors to students. These are things they're not trained to do and can actually exacerbate problems that may happen. And teachers have a lot of hats to wear. I wore a lot of hats as a teacher. I worked in a facility with troubled youth, boys, and they came with a lot of baggage. And I didn't try to be their counselor, their mom, or anything else. I didn't try to be their friend either. I was their teacher. Somebody else was their counselor. When I went to public school and taught there, I didn't try to be a friend. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I'm a teacher. That's just how it works. And I made sure my kids learned. And I'd like to bring that back to our teachers in Wycomico County. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Groves. Mr. Malone, tell us about yourself.
Thank you. So my name's Gene Malone. I'm currently the chairman of the Wycomico County School Board. Been on the school board since 2016, and I've been either vice chairman, acting chairman, or chairman since 2017. Native, lifelong residents, graduated public school, met my wife in junior high school here. We raised our 3 boys through public school. Parents are public school, grandparents are public school, so dirt between my toes. I'm an Eastern Shore guy, so I've been here a long time. Spent my entire adult life coaching youth sports. I coached Little League and soccer for 25 years. I've been in other community groups. I've been on the board of Habitat. I've been on the board of the Salisbury JCs and other community groups. I've always had a love for community service, which attracted me to the school board. Currently, since 2012, I referee youth soccer at Crown Sports Center and at the high school level. So as far as my priorities, my 3 priorities, one of my priorities is for us to ensure all students graduate college ready or career ready. We need to get the word out there that CTE, which is our career technology education, is not a bad word. Not every student is college bound or college ready. My wife and I raised one. And you're encouraged to go the college route, which is great. But CTE is okay, and you can do both. You can graduate with a CTE degree and also have a college prep program and end up, for example, being an LPN nurse after high school and then need 2 years to get your BS. That will improve our graduation rate, which is now about 83%, which should be in the high 80s. Second priority, ensure a high-performing workforce. We need to do that by recruiting properly. We have a good partnership with Salisbury University. We need one with UMES, Warwick, and other colleges. Then once we get them in, we need to continue to mentor them, which we have a program now. We need to expand that. Studies show you lose most of your teachers in the first 2 years. We need to set a goal of 90% retention of new teachers after year 2. We got to do something goal-oriented and to keep the teachers in. Without good teachers, you're not going to achieve your college and career readiness. And then finally, as everyone's talked about, safety. We always had safety as a priority. Students can't learn in an environment that they believe is unsafe or they feel is unsafe. I agree with the others who have said we need an SRO or a deputy in all schools. It's time to send the message to the world that we're serious about safety, and we are, and to let the bad guys know we're serious about safety. But it is two-pronged. We also need to expand mental health workers, social workers. This SRO can help you when the event occurs, but they can't help you stop it from the beginning. We need those people to try to figure out what's going through people's heads, and a lot of times students, that they want to shoot up a school. And maybe if we had more the healthcare workers and social workers in the schools, we could see those problems early and head them off. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I am not Murray.
Ms.
It's okay.
Miller, please tell us about yourself.
I'm Karen Miller. I'm not from Wicomico County, but I've lived here since 1999. Prior to 1999, I was a stay-at-home mom on the other side of the shore, where I ran a daycare and did Girl Scouts and all of those things. Since coming here, I've been a parent of 3 Wicomico County graduates. I've been a classroom volunteer, a PTA member, a PTA officer, a substitute teacher, and then I taught in Wicomico County schools for 19 years. I retired right at the beginning of the pandemic, and then ended up working for SU supervising student interns. So right back into the classroom. So my entire career has been since Columbine. So school safety has always been on my mind. Every classroom I've ever been in, I've looked. Where would we stand? What would we do? I can't count the number of times we've been on lockdowns in my classroom, in the schools I was in, because of community events. So it's a real thing. Threats from without of the school, and also threats from within. As a teacher, I can tell you the bullying is an issue. The cell phone bullying is an issue. The mental health is an issue. And if we would concentrate on those things, we would make our schools much safer. If we concentrated on making sure that each child really did feel welcome. Welcome in the cafeteria, welcome in the classroom, welcome in the hallways. So mental health is a huge priority. I have been talking, as I was a teacher and since I've retired, with a lot of teachers and administrators and community partners parents of students I've taught in the community. And the overwhelming sense that I have gotten is that parents appreciate our teachers. We have good teachers. The teachers feel overwhelmed. They went from being pandemic heroes to scapegoats pretty darn quick. And coming back to school, I'm not sure if everybody was aware of what it was going to be like when students came back. And it's been overwhelming because kids came back not really ready to be there, not ready with the structures, not ready with having handled their sense of grieving from the pandemic. And it's been a lot for teachers to handle. If we don't get hold of that, oh geez.
You still got 30
I had
seconds.
so much more to say. Hit me up later, I'm sorry. I could talk all day.
Still have 30 more seconds.
So just so you know that when the first sign gets held, you have 30 seconds. It's not a lot of time, but you do have a little bit of time.
I could have talked for
The
another
second
hour.
is 10, and then you'll hear and I'll let you go to finish your sentence. So keep that in mind. It is not, you know, and I am grateful that I'm not
It's
sitting in
okay.
her seat.
I
did
still
that.
had 3 more index cards though.
So fill them out. So this is the first audience-generated question. Mr. Angela, this is for you. What can be done to maintain good student behavior in schools?
Thank you for the question. I believe the best way to maintain good student behavior is to recognize students that are achieving in behavior-wise who are doing what's best. When I was in school, for example, I was that one student who seemed to just get along with people, and it just happened. But I didn't feel as if it was there was not really that congratulations factor. I was always some school teachers would have put me as the student of the month, stuff like that. I think stuff like that could definitely keep it going if you recognize the students that are doing good. I don't really think we should focus on students who aren't doing the best. I think we should really try to elevate students who are performing well. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want a chance at that one? Okay. Mr. Brown, this is your audience-generated question. What is your assessment of how Wycomico County Public Schools are addressing special education needs and what needs improvement?
Currently in Wycomico County, we have a director of special education. We have special education teachers in all of our schools. Each student who needs special education has an IEP, an individualized plan for them. We need to continue to have those plans, continue to work with the parents to upgrade them on an ongoing basis. Currently, we have grown from having just one particular person in the school to a team. So each special ed student who has an IEP work with a team, and they work with the parents. So in this way, we're hoping that we can bridge that gap and make sure that the goals that are set in their IEPs are met. If we continue to do this with the support that we need in terms of not only teaching the child, but also having the social worker with the family, as well as the administration of the school. Currently in Wycomico County, I feel that our special education program has really grown, but it still needs work, and we still need additional personnel to help us meet the goals that we have planned for those individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else want a chance at that? Okay, Ms. Groves? What is the role of a Wycomico County Board of Education member, and what do you believe is the domain of the board versus the domain of the superintendent?
Okay, the role of the board. The role of the board is at the top. The superintendent is accountable to the board. This is not an opinion. This is the law. This is not up for debate. So I understand that Dr. Hanlon is retiring, and I have great respect for Dr. Hanlon, as she was my vice principal when I was at Bennett Bennett High School. So I have great respect for Dr. Hanlon. And But the role of the board is to actually direct the process and the curriculum and design the budget, do everything, and have everybody under there, from the superintendent down, is to be the team that works with the board. They work basically for the board. And again, this is the law. There is a whole COMAR section that has everything to do with just education. And you can order this from LexisNexis. So this is not top secret information. So anyone who would like more information, of course, can let me know, and I can point you in that direction. But I believe that the board, because we are elected now, we are accountable to voters, not to the governor, not to the state. Well, we are accountable to the state board to a degree, but we are accountable to the people, not to some superintendent or group of bureaucrats. We are accountable to people, to the voters, to the children, because that's who we serve, not bureaucrats. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Groves. Mr. Malone, would you like a chance?
I would, thank you. So the role of the board is governance. So we govern like a board of directors of a major company, and our CEO is the superintendent. That's the only direct report we have, is the superintendent. Everyone else reports through her. In my mind, I've been told many times, when it became an elected school board, our duties and jobs changed. It did not. We always were governance. We always were accountable to the people and to the students and to the teachers and faculty, et cetera. But that person who makes the ship run and is in the weeds every day is the superintendent. If that person doesn't do their job, the board's governance role is to find somebody who will and remove that person and go through whatever the proper procedures are. I relate it to my time in banking. I've been a 43-year banker. I've never had board members of the bank when I was at M&T Bank come and say, get in my business day to day without first saying, hey, can I visit? They would call my boss and say, hey, you need to get Gene straight. That's just how it goes. We are governance, and again, it hasn't changed since we were appointed versus elected. We're still accountable to all of you, teachers, faculty, and most of all, the students. If we are not accountable to students, then, what are we doing here? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Anyone else would like a shot at that? Okay. Ms. Miller?
I think it's
Oh, Mr. Miller.
Don't I get a turn?
He just,
I don't want to leave
all
them
right.
out.
Yeah. So, Mr. Malone, how should schools support teachers in helping students who are homeless or dealing with trauma? What should a teacher do when a student has built a relationship with them and come to them for help?
The role of schools and teachers in the community is huge, because they're the ones that are going to recognize the homeless issues, the issues that they need for health care, et cetera. When you have a student that comes to you as a teacher with this problem of homelessness or whatever, that teacher should report that through her supervisor, her principal, and then that should get to the level of the central office to figure out ways we can do this. We might not be able to do it ourselves, but we should call in the folks that need to do that. As Mrs. Miller said, the teachers wear a lot of hats, so once they have that relationship with that student, being able to help them and they're their confidant, then we need to find the people in the community, whether it be healthcare workers, social workers, whether it be the mayor, he's working on the homes for the homeless. That's the way you go. We're just the schools are part of that community, and it should be the central focus of the community in terms of students, parents, families feeling comfortable going to their schools and saying, hey, I need help, can you help me find that? And that is a big role of us as members of the public school system. It's not just reading, writing, arithmetic. It's the whole child, the whole family, and the whole community.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Ms. Miller?
Teacher, I wanted to speak to that simply because you would like to think that school administration would be aware of those situations when they arise, but the reality is families oftentimes that are in stress hide it. And they don't want somebody to know. Yes, they need the help, but they're embarrassed. And it takes the relationships of the teacher and the student many times to uncover that. Or the relationship of the teacher to a different student. Because it may be a student will tell another student, but won't tell the teacher. So again, small class sizes will help make sure teachers have more time to spread themselves wide. But yes, teachers should automatically report that to whoever. I know at Bennett Middle, we had a team that handled those kinds of things, and you could handle them confidentially. But it takes relationships, and that's very important that teachers are able to develop those kind of relationships with their students so that we can make sure that students get the services that their families need for everybody to be successful.
Thank you. Ms. Miller.
I'm not going to look at your cards this time.
Where should our budget priorities be and why?
You heard I was a math teacher, right? Well, as I sat through a budget meeting, I was really, as a teacher, I hadn't pictured the whole budget. But I sat through that one budget meeting where they showed just the cost of opening the doors. Our cost of opening the doors is enormous. I don't know that people realize that. Just to have the infrastructure there is enormous. Once that's settled, and of course that's got to be done, we do need to be sure that we're paying competitive wages to attract the people that we need. We've had a substitute shortage for the last few years, and that falls on teachers and IAs and substitute teachers to pick up the slack when that happens. And that hurts everybody. That hurts academic achievement, that hurts school safety, that hurts teacher retention. So we need to be sure that we're paying our support personnel well so that we have enough substitutes, so that we have quality IAs, so that we can keep them. If your IA is revolving door IA, they can't develop the relationship with the kids either, or understand the curriculum in order to help. So things that directly touch the classroom should be a priority, and things that keep quality educators and support staff should be a priority. Those would be my two biggest priorities.
Thank you. Would anyone like, Ms. Groves?
I'm actually going to agree with Ms. Miller on this. I wish we could pay teachers $1 million a piece. They deserve it because they've been through it these last couple of years. And I agree that there's lots of mitigating factors as to why we need to make this a priority. But I think the other part of it is we need to make sure that not only are we paying them fairly, we're treating them fairly. There are aides, IAs, that are going 20 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 30 minutes here, all over the place. You can't accomplish anything. And instead of concentrating these aides, these IAs, where they need to be for extended periods of time, so they can build a relationship not only with the teacher, but with the group of students that they need to be working with. And also, I also think that we need to compensate the teachers with a fund built within the budget for classroom supplies. When I was a teacher, I spent out of my pocket hundreds of dollars for my classroom, and I loved every minute of it. It gets expensive really quick. I'm sure you'd agree, Ms. Miller. And I loved every minute of it, but it created an environment in my classroom that was warm and inviting. And I don't think teachers should have to spend hundreds of dollars when they're not getting paid enough anyway. So I think that building that fund within our budget is also important, and that's part of their compensation as well. So I think not only paying fairly, treating everyone fairly, and giving them the tools within the budget necessary to create inviting environments for their students is also part of the budget priority as well.
Thank you. You want to pass it to Mr. Brown?
You know, thinking about the budget, it's almost like you're looking at your home. What is the most pressing need? What is the most pressing thing you have to do? And working with a budget for a school system is just that. You know you've got to have that facility ready for the kids to come in. You know you've got to have it safe for them to come in. You know you've got to have the best qualified people to work with them, whether it be the teacher or the administration or the support personnel. So what you have to do is to look at your budget and determine what part can I do without for a period of time to come back and get it another time. So looking at a budget for a school system is just that. One of the things I think we have to admit to today is that safety is monumental. You know, we've got to make sure that those kids, when they walk into that building, all of them with the baggage that they have, that they feel safe. They feel that they're going to be wanted, they're going to be needed, and they're going to be respected. And we do that by making certain that the best qualified people are there working with them. It's difficult to actually pull out one. They're kind of interwoven, and you just have to kind of balance it out somehow so that you're doing the best you possibly can, so that you make every day that each student that comes to that school has a rewarding and enjoyable day, and that you're educating them to the point where they're going to be a product that can be proud of from the Wycomico school system, so that they can go out and make a living for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Angelot, you are the only one who did not use your pass, so we're going to give you another audience-generated question because we want you to have your 2 questions.
Now he wishes he used his pass.
I was considering using my pass, but
Did you want to?
Oh, no. I'll
Okay.
ask. Yeah, I'll take the
I mean, you
question.
can.
I'll take the question.
Okay.
I'll take the question.
I'm always a couple steps ahead here.
Mhm.
So the question is, what have you seen that's working in Wycomico County Public Schools? Be specific and give examples and explain.
That's a question I'm thinking about what I've seen that works. I think generally what I've noticed, at least from what works, we definitely have this sense of community somewhat. We have in our school system. But we also have the ability to just, we're here. I mean, it takes a lot to make a public school system work. So that alone is something that we should be proud of, that we're able to manage a public school system. But I'm not quite sure how to respond to that question. As I'm trying to say, what have I seen work? I think it's a difficult question for me to answer. I'm trying to think of how to answer that. There's things I can think that work, but it's just, sorry, there's not much I can say to that. I apologize, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
These are your District 1 and 2.
Thank you. Next.
I'm ready to roll. So, we find ourselves in an interesting position, and this is how we're going to handle that interesting position. The people that have planned this forum, and I'm not one of them, but have worked hard in their minds on how to handle the number of candidates that we had, even recognizing we don't have all the candidates. And I hear there's a forum that might be coming where all the candidates will be there in the evening, and I don't want to be, I'm grateful for that forum, but I don't want to be a part of that, because it is a challenge to figure out how to be fair and how to give everybody an opportunity. So we are a little ahead of our schedule, and so what I'm going to tell you is the way we're going to end the day. This next panel is the candidates that have been able to be here from districts 3, 4, and 5. And at the end of this time, we'll do it just like we've done all the other candidate panels. At the end of this time, we expect to have a sizable amount of time left. So we're going to invite those candidates that are seated now to stay seated, and then we're going to invite all the other candidates to come and join them. And then we're going to take audience-generated questions to specific candidates. So write those questions now. That's why I'm telling you, because we didn't really know how else to handle this extra time. So that's how we're going to handle it at the end of this round.
And PUSH volunteers will be passing out index cards now to the audience. If you have a specific question for a specific candidate at the end of the forum, when we have some extra time. We gave 2 minutes for every question, and some people are finishing up a little early. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Thank you.
The other thing I would say is please write legibly. Thank you. As one who doesn't write legibly. So as I said previously, these are your candidates from districts 3, 4, and 5. And we are now in the time frame, the part of this forum where they get to tell us a little bit about who they are and a lot about, as long as they can get it in 3 minutes, of their vision and priorities for this Board of Education in Wycomico. Professor Arby.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the organizers and all of you present. It's an honor to be here. And my name is Leonard Arby. I'm a professor of finance in the Purdy School of Business. I've been a resident of Salisbury since 2008. Both my kids were born in Salisbury, so I consider myself as a native person, even though I'm the only foreign-born candidate in this entire panel. I'm a proud U.S. citizen. My daughter goes to Bennett Middle, 7th grade. My son goes to Salisbury Middle, 6th grade. They used to go to private school, but I moved them to public schools because I thought public schools did a much better job with more resources. So I'm really pleased with the education that they get. As an educator myself, a 4th-generation educator, I chose a career in education over a career in Wall Street. And I'm also, it's not just, I just don't teach. I'm also an investor and an entrepreneur. The single largest investment in downtown is because of my team. The crane that you see is a project of ours. I believe in this town and I'm investing in it, and therefore I'm running for this position. I want to support our educators and our students. 3 priorities for me. One is hard infrastructure. No student has to attend a school that is safe or unsanitary. The school should be safe, should be up to code, should have heating and cooling. So we need to accelerate investments, capital investments in building the state-of-the-art schools that the students deserve. This is what we owe to our students. Number 2, soft infrastructure. We need to make sure that the teachers are the best in the business. We need to hire. You get for what you pay for. I truly believe that. If you run a business, you know, if you pay your employees well, you get the best. And I think retaining and hiring teachers by paying them the best is critical. Next is, all the candidates have talked about safety. Mental health issue is really critical, and it is significant post-COVID. We need to hire social workers, behavioral health specialists, allied wellness specialists to help our students. We are woefully understaffed, and then no matter what you can do to preserve to lock the buildings is not enough if early signs are not detected and then preventive measures are taken. So we need to put our dollars where it actually matters. So that's soft infrastructure. And finally, I'm a firm believer in financial literacy. Every child in every grade must be taught financial literacy because it is not something that is desirable, it is indispensable. If you don't have the skills to manage your finances, you will make wrong career choices. Not every kid has to go to college. As a college professor, you'll be shocked to say that. You can be a good tradesman, make a good living, and make a good contribution to society. So making the good career choice is actually vitally important. And finally, supporting our STEM and CTE programs is very, very critical, and I think we strongly believe in that. And one of the underappreciated facts of the school system is that we always talk about the negative things. We do great things. Kids go to Ivy League schools. We need to support educators and students, and that's why I'm running for it. And I hope I'll have your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis, tell us about yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, it's on.
Okay. I want to begin by thanking those individuals for allowing this public forum to be available, and it's an honor to speak before you today. For those that are not aware, I'm Tanya Laird Lewis, and I currently hold the District 3 seat for the Board of Education, and I'm seeking re-election. With 2 children in the school system, it shows firsthand the importance of having an individual like myself on the front lines for Wycomico County Public Schools. I have a purpose and I'm passionate about getting back to basics. Since 2019, the goal has been to support my children along with the 15,000 other scholars to reach their goals and dreams. My 3 platform points are as follows. School safety, not just safety for our students, but safety for our teachers, faculty, and staff. These buildings may be the only safe haven for our scholars. We need SROs, or student resource officers, in all of our school buildings in Wycomico County Public School. I will continue to work alongside the current Board of Ed members to push for more manpower coming from the Wycomico County Sheriff's offices. Many meetings have occurred and will continue to occur in the future, and we will make this happen.
Platform point 2, parent and guardian transparency and communication. I want to be someone that the community can depend on. I intend to be the link between the school system and the public. Attending school and community events, it keeps me in touch with the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nonprofits, churches, and so many more community groups. Never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty, truth, and compassion. Platform point number 3, vocational and CTE expansion and training. Did you know that there are over 590,000 small businesses in Maryland alone? 75% of those businesses are hands-on trades. My family represents just one of those small businesses in Wycomico County. Vocational training is so important for the following and the key components. We are providing students with hands-on learning experiences, safe and supportive guidance from trained professionals, and program-specific experiences with career exploitation. I commit to increase all resources engaged with CTE and vocational training. In closing, I pledge to listen with curiosity, to speak with honesty, and act with integrity. So let's get back to basics. For further information regarding my platform points or my current involvement with Wycomico County Board of Ed, as well as my extensive community involvement, you can find me on social media, by email, by phone, or visit my webpage. There are cards available on the candidate table for your convenience. Thank you.
Thank you. And I am not a product of Wicomico County Public Schools, but I have 2 daughters that are. And in Talbot County, where I learned the alphabet, S comes after P. So, Mr. Palmer, we're going to go to you and then come back to Miss.
What we did was District 4 comes before District 5.
But we've been doing alphabetical,
Okay.
so I'm going to stick with that. This,
Okay.
trying to add a little levity to this. John?
I've learned not to argue with Ann.
Good point.
Maybe I should be so wise.
Good afternoon. My name's John Palmer. I don't have any notes for an intro or anything. I was called 5 after 12 to ask if I would like to fill in for District 5, and I was on my way up to Waldorf to cut grass at my mother-in-law's. And after I leave here, that's where I'm going to go. But I'm always glad to get out and talk to the people in the public. It's such a joy. I enjoy what I'm doing. I hope to do it for longer. One of the best things that I enjoy is the kids. If you've ever been into a pre-K or kindergarten class, on the first couple of days of school, it's an organized chaos. I'm telling you, there's kids everywhere. But come back in a month or month and a half, and you will see that those teachers have those little kids in hand. They can put everything in their cubbies. They know which desk to go to without fighting, and they know where their spot is on the floor. So that's the enjoyable part of this job. I'm not a homegrown Wycomico County person. I'm an Army brat. I was born, my dad was in the Army. So when I got my draft notice while in high school, I joined the Navy. And I spent 21 years in the Navy. And during those tours, I had the opportunity to teach at the Naval Academy. I taught mechanical system engineering at Rickover Hall. And it was a real thrill to do that. I can see the comparison between the classes that I had at Rickover Hall and then what the teachers have in classes nowadays. And there is a big, big difference, I'm telling you. But I'm telling you, we have some top-notch teachers. Sometimes we hear a lot of bad things, but I'm telling you, we got some of the best around in our school system. My 3 top issues, one of them is, of course, safety. I'm on the Building Commission committee, and I do want you to know that after Beaver Run goes into commission in another month or so, that'll make 24 of our 24 schools that have the secure vestibules in the front. And that's a big That's a big issue. And that was a push project that the school system has done very well at working at. There is a flaw in this system. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I will be bringing it up at the next building commission system.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
You're welcome.
And now the moment we've been waiting for.
And
Ms. Sothowski.
Thank you. My name is Ann Brittingham Suthowski, and I have the distinction of being the first woman ever elected to the Wycomico County School Board. I am a native and lifelong resident, a Y-High graduate, and I have a BS and Master's from SU. I had a fantastic career in education in the Laurel, Delaware School District, where I taught English, journalism, and for 21 years had a secondary reading center, which was used as a model for the other reading centers in the state of Delaware. I also represented the Laurel School District in initiating the Right to Read project, the first testing in the state of Delaware, the implementation of middle schools, and many, many parent reading conferences. Locally, I have been a civil judge on the Planning and Zoning Board. I've served on the Wycomico County Board of Elections, SU Alumni Board, Friends of Salisbury Zoo, and Friends of Poplar Hill Mansion. I've been president of American Association of University Women, Town and Country Garden Club, Institute of Retired Persons, and United Methodist Women at Bethesda Church. And I also am a member of many history and art organizations. My opponents are not here. Why? Because both of them have full-time jobs. These candidate forums never ask the right questions. The first question that should be asked to every candidate for the Wycomico County Board of Education is, quote, do you have 30 to 35 hours every month to devote to BOE business? I was just corrected by Tanya. She told me I should say 40 to 45. For example, April through June, we had 21 meetings and events that occurred during the day. 5 of these were all-day meetings. If someone has a full-time job, that means 21 times during the month, they're going to have to ask permission from their employer. Also during this three-month period, we had 20 events that happened either at night or on Saturday. Again, if you have a family with a lot of children and you have family events, where do you what takes prioritized? Excuse me. Okay. Then there is the day reading. Each day, Monday through Friday, you should plan at least 30 to 40 minutes. This is readings from the board, from constituents, from MABE, and from other organizations. I do usually 20 to 25 in the morning and 20 and 25 in the afternoon. Then there are committee meetings. Each BOE member serves on 2 committees. Do the candidates even know what the committees are?
Ms. Sothowski, thank you.
Okay.
I do want to add one correction, and I do not know why all of the candidates are not here. I do know that there are candidates here that have full-time jobs, and Mr. Plotz was going to be here today but is homesick. So I just
Mr. Plotz
needed to say
Mr. Plotz
that.
has never shown
So-
up.
And Mr. Plotz did RSVP in time.
Yes, but
So
Mr. Plotz never showed up.
with that, we're going to go to audience-generated questions, and we're going to be to Dr. Arby. What steps could Wycomico County Public Schools take to address achievement gaps and learning loss brought on by the pandemic and remote learning?
Excellent question. As we know, the pandemic has definitely disrupted teaching as well as learning for the last 2 years. If students do not bridge this gap, the gap will continue to widen, and it's impossible for them to graduate on time or be successful in college. And we are seeing this in the university level, where students are underprepared. They're not able to do college level courses and they drop out. Just a startling statistic, the age group of 25 to 44-year-old males in this country 1/4 of them are not in the workforce. They are not working. They are not going to school. And that is a significant contributor to the unemployment and therefore the inflation in this country. Wages are rising because the labor participation rate is extremely low. And you can trace it back exactly to the foundations that they've received or haven't received in schools. So what we need to do is, like I said, soft infrastructure. You need to devote dollars to increase the times the schools are open, maybe extra days for instructional training during summers, etc. You want to reduce the disparity, because if the achievement gap continues to persist, no matter what we do, these students are set to fail. They will get student loans, which the federal government gives generously and has to be written off somewhere, and these students will be unsuccessful. This has to be done at the school level. So anything and everything that we can do, extra instructional training, more programming days, extra summer days, whatever we can do to help that should be done. And the educators know best, we just need to support it. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone like a chance at that question? Okay. Ms. Lewis?
Yes?
How can we get all of our children reading at grade level? What do you know about where we're at and how to get where we need to be?
Great question, thank you. As a mother who does have a child who falls under the special education platform that does have an IEP, I have some extensive knowledge with allowing the school system and the resources that we have. We have reading intervention programs where students are pulled out during the day. My child participated in them. There are parent volunteers that sign up with the classroom teachers that pull students out into the hallway to work on engagement, reading, fun activities. There are weekly and monthly assessments done with the teachers and the instructional assistants for students to make sure that they are ready. In Wycomico County, we also have a program where we are reaching out to specific child care centers where students are being tested for possible early enrollment into pre-K or into kindergarten programs. We are making sure that these students are ready, they're reading on age level. The data shows that we are working towards that goal. We are not there yet due to circumstances from the pandemic, but as a parent who is reading the same books as her children are reading now through school, just to make sure that they're understanding and comprehending, this issue was here before the pandemic, it's going to be here after the pandemic, and it is our obligation as Board of Ed members and faculty and staff to make sure that we are doing what we can do to get our students reading on grade level.
Thank you. Anyone like a chance?
Yes.
Ms. Sadowski?
I'm a secondary reading specialist, not an elementary reading specialist, but it is unrealistic to say that every single child is going to read on the 3rd grade level in the 3rd grade. We need to take out our special education children that have IEPs because they have realistic expectations for those children. We also need to take out these dear children who are coming in from other countries who have never seen English before. It is unrealistic to say that by the time they are 8 years old, they are going to be reading on grade level. They have a lot of catching up to do. We also have children in our schools in what I call medical strollers. These children have one-on-ones and in most cases cannot even communicate. We have many autistic children who are one-on-ones. When I go into school, the first thing I ask a principal is, how many one-on-ones do you have? How many are medical? How many are autistic? You would be surprised. There are many, many in every school. But we have to be realistic. Are we talking about average IQ children reading on grade level in the 3rd grade? Yes, that is realistic. But we have to look at the whole problem.
Thank you.
You didn't get my pink slip here.
Yes. Sorry.
I'm going to kind of do a twofer. It has to do with both questions that were addressed. We know who the children are. The children aren't achieving as fast as we hope. But I'm wondering how many people have followed a teacher around on a day. Let me tell you, when a teacher comes in at 7:15 and she has to go to the lunchroom for all the breakfasts that's got to be served, then when the kids start coming in, she's got to go out to the parking lot to direct traffic and buses. And I don't know if any of you have been up to Delmar, but I'm telling you, I don't know how they do it up there. And don't get caught in the wrong lane or you're there for the next half hour. The whole time these teachers are out there. Then when they're done, they get to go to their class, and just as they get done their class, they got to go out in the hallway to be referees, going up and down the hallways. And then if somebody's got to go to be disciplined, they got to go into the office. They got to fill out papers that keeps them from going in their classroom, in which you got to call an IA or somebody to come in and take their place. The problem is, and Ms. Siggers just left, I really believe we need to do what she said, and it has been brought up. I have personally brought this up at board meetings. We need to get other people to do these types of duties. We need the teachers in the classrooms where they belong, one-on-one teaching. And until we get this situation straightened out, we're going to continue to be like this. Thank you.
So the question is regarding how can we make sure that the students are able to grade at grade level, right?
Yes.
So there's an academic study that shows that if you incentivize students by paying them, they will do well. It's a radical idea. It's not radical because it's been tested and it's shown positive results. There's no better motivation than self-motivation. Darling, it's not expensive. Even $2 if you read a book, right? It adds up. It probably costs like $100 for the year if the student manages to read 50 books, right? You could get private sponsorship from businesses to support that. And why don't we pilot it? Doing the same thing over and over again, I don't think it's going to help. We need to think of radical solutions, and I think our students will step up to do it. So.
Thank you. So, Mr. Palmer, we're to your audience-generated question, and that is, what is the role of the SRO in schools? School resource officers, for those who don't know
Protect
alphabets.
the safety of the children and the people in the school. That's his job. That's his sole job. That is what he's supposed to do. While he's doing that, he gets to know these students. He builds good personal relationships with them. He gets to know the teachers, and people do become friends. It's just, you just can't help it. I remember back in school, I had a lot of friendly teachers. I considered them all friends. But that SRO, his main job is protecting the safety of the children and the people in that school. That's it.
Thank you. Would you like that?
I would like to use my.
You pass it, that one?
I would like to use my pass. So as someone who is dealing with an issue currently, my youngest daughter attends Pittsville Elementary and Middle School. It is the only secondary school in Wycomico County that does not have a permanent SRO. And I will tell you, the relationship between the students and the SRO, it's lacking. We have had a full-time one in the past, and due to lack of manpower that is provided through the sheriff's office as no fault of their own, as we know all jobs are in shortages right now, the only time a position is filled there is if it's picked up as an overtime, which is very disturbing because there's no bonding being built there between the student. If the student feels unsafe in a classroom or near a student, who is that student going to talk to? They feel safe with the SRO, and when there's one not there, I'm afraid with the mental health crisis that we're dealing with, it's going to go unnoticed. It is definitely the need for the SRO to build the relationships with the students, along with the faculty and staff, to be that presence in the parking lot, be the presence on the front loop at drop-off, be the presence at pickup in the afternoon. Building bonds and relationship and being transparent in the school system is a main purpose for an SRO in a building.
Thank you. You've already used your
okay.
pass. I'm sorry. So
We can rip it in
we
half.
have one more audience-generated question from Ms. Sothowski.
Oh, yes.
And that is, the Inclusive Schools Act has been passed into law. How do you plan to translate this law into policy here in the county?
First of all, I have no idea what you're talking about. What inclusive school, I mean, we may be calling it something else.
It's called the Inclusive Schools Act.
It
It was
has not
just
been
passed
brought
into
up in
law.
front of the board. I'm sorry, it's not been brought up in front of the board, and I'm sure this was a placed question to embarrass me, and I think I know who wrote it.
So we're going to give you, hold on, we're going to give you another question. Because I don't know what it is either.
And it has not, I'll ask my fellow board members, has this been brought up in front of us?
So here's your question. What can be done to maintain good student behavior in schools?
Oh, am I ready for that one? I taught for 31 years. I'm going tomorrow night to a reunion of a class that I taught 50 years ago. In talking to some of these former students of mine, I asked them what they remembered about me the most. And the one thing they remembered was the fact that I could maintain discipline and order in a classroom. And the one thing that I did to maintain discipline and order is that the first day of school, I sent home a list of rules. I called them the shalls and the shan'ts. What you could do in my classroom and what you could not do in my classroom. And the parents had to sign them and return them. I think we need to go back to this. The students need to know what to expect from their teachers. The teachers need to have a set of rules and regulations, and no matter who you are or who you think you are, you have to follow them. Many of our code of conduct, and I brought some things with me. This is the code of conduct for Wycomico County Public Schools. This is what every teacher in Wycomico County Schools has to follow. It gives you exactly how each offense is to be dealt with. So it's not necessarily up to the classroom teacher. But the teachers need to have rules and regulations. The students need to know who's in charge, and is the teacher.
Thank you. So this concludes this part of the forum with the panelists and the candidates from districts 3, 4, and 5. And so now we're inviting the rest of the candidates who have already been on a panel to join these panelists. They'll stand behind you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's nice to meet you too.
Yes, up there.
Oh, so they're coming here?
Here, yeah.
We're flying by the seat of our pants right now, Gene.
Everybody's leaving.
We will probably not have enough time for everybody to have a question. We did not choose who gets these questions. The audience chose that, and so I'm going to ask them.
I'm sure there's another one to embarrass.
So, Ms. Sothowski, this is for you. How do we make the Board of Ed to be inclusive of people who do work so that the board is not only populated by retired or financially independent people?
Good question. But if you don't have 35 to 40 hours a month to give to the board and to do what the voters want you to do, you should not be running for the office. When I was employed, I did not seek office because I knew I could not do the work. And this is unfortunate, but if someone has a full-time job and has a large family, how is the person going to do 30, 35, or as Tanya said, 40 to 45 hours a month for school board? That's just the way it is. There were 5 meetings during the day. They were important meetings. Every board member had to be there. So that's just the way it is.
Thank you. Mr. Malone, in regards to finance, if the state says funds are available, but there are strings attached, and these strings are against the county's public opinion, do you accept the money or turn it down, and why?
That's a very good question. I think it depends on what the strings are that are attached in terms of how it affects the county. I know what they're probably referring to is we masked up all the kids when we started school because it was a state mandate, and people said, why didn't you just oppose it? Because many of us would like to have had mask optional, because it wasn't a threat, but it was pretty clear in the regulation that we could have funds withheld. So we have to look at the big picture, and if they're going to withhold funds when we're rebuilding Mardella, Beaver Run, et cetera, then we may have to adhere to what the state wants us to do. But again, it depends on what the strings are. If it impacts the educational process of the schools, then we would have to say no. But if there's strings like you got to do this and they have to wear masks because the whole state's wearing masks, or else you might not get your funding for schools, then that's what we did, and I'm not sorry that we did it. We have 3 new schools going up, or improvements to schools.
Thank you. So this is for Dr. Ennis.
Oh, good.
What curriculum changes would you like to see and why? What's working well now and what needs improvement and why?
We've changed curriculum to match the standards set by the state. The state will provide for us the standards that they will be using to assess our students on. So right now in mathematics and in reading, we are using the Maryland College and Career Ready standards. And so those standards dictate the curriculum that we are teaching at the elementary and at the secondary level, because that's how our students are assessed, that's how our schools are assessed in looking at our student achievement. We have currently before us now, we are looking at the new health standards that are coming through. Those health standards will be coming forward with instructional materials. COMAR has dictated that one of the things that we will be doing is to share all of those instructional materials with parents. COMAR also dictates that parents will have the option to opt out of any of those resources and any of those lessons that they feel do not fit their child or they do not want their child to be a part of. So the curriculum changes that I see right now are dictated by the state and the state needs for assessing our students as required by our ESSA law in reporting student achievement in both mathematics and in ELA and English 10 as well as Algebra 1.
Mr. Arvey, what can be done to address school safety and why, and how do we balance safety with a positive school climate?
So this is a very important topic and an issue that we have to think carefully on how to deal with it. So going back to the SRO thing, let me give a different perspective. If you have I went to school in India, there is no country on earth where you have an armed police officer on a school premise anywhere except the US. So when you have an armed police officer on campus in a school, think about the stress that a minority student goes through in dealing with that. I think that's fundamentally wrong. It's easy to arm and put any number of, you had 19 police officers in Uvalde and still 19 kids got shot. What's the point? They were waiting in the hallways. The point is not to do in a reactively, but then you have to deal with how Israel does it. Israel, the way they do it is you go to Israel, there is no TSA in Israel. After a couple of hijackings, what Israel did was they made sure they did behavioral analysts who would actually pick out people who are waiting in line. Not everybody, not a 90-year-old grandma needs to be patted down, or a 3-year-old child, or somebody's baby food being tested like the way insanely we do it in the US. That's not the way to do it. The way you do safety is to preemptively. The people who are in touch with the students day in, day out are the teachers, right? You want to train the teachers. You want to give adequate training to the teachers and fund more behavioral specialists, wellness counselors, guidance counselors. Instead of having one police officer, how about having 10 other
additional support staff that can actually point and pinpoint things and then preemptively, deal with these things. I think that's the way to go about it. You can have 10 police officers, still a determined shooter is going to shoot a place up. There's nothing going to stop them. You can have all the fortified structures you can have, but somebody's determined to do it, they will do it. So.
Thank you. Ms. Siggers.
Yes.
Yes, would you please sit at a mic? What is truancy, and what do you know about what is done to combat this in our community?
Truancy, when your kids should be in school, but they're hanging out somewhere else, plain and simply. I'm not sure what the county does. I think that there are those who go around to see what, I'll just say when I was in school, we had truant officers. And if you were found on the streets or out of school somewhere when you should have been in school, there were consequences to be paid for that. So I'm not sure what the policy is here in the county right now, but when your students should be in school, there are those people who should be holding them accountable or having a reason to get them back into school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I should say that I had a request from the audience, and I didn't impose it, but at the end, we will give you an opportunity to say what district you are or whether you're at large, because they're wanting to have that identified. So what we'll do is we'll just ask at large, and you rate,
Can I just say while I'm sitting here?
We'll do that at the end for
Good
everybody,
enough.
because everybody's not at
Sure.
a microphone. Ms. Miller. And thank you all for working with me. This is the part that I did not want to be at this seat. What do you think about censorship of books like those that superintendent decided recently?
What do I think about
Censorship
Can you
of
hear us?
books.
I wouldn't say that I am for censorship. I will say that I sat at the board meeting that evening and heard an audio tape of one section of that book played, I'm going to say 15, 20 minutes on repeat. And I was extremely uncomfortable. Now, I've never read that book, so I can't speak to the context of the whole book. Listening to that scene did make me very uncomfortable. What I have continued to hear in the community since then is that we have pornographic material in our schools, and I don't think that that book as a whole would fall under the definition of pornographic material, although that one section was very troubling to listen to. It was also in a high school library, and high school seniors are 18 years old. So it wasn't used instructionally. I would have probably had a problem with it being used instructionally. It was in a library, and it dealt with a specific group of students. From my understanding, it was a book that had to do with homosexual students, the gay and lesbian lifestyle. So while I would not have been comfortable reading the book, and I'm not sure I would have been happy with my own children reading the book, I think that the policy should have been followed to have the book reviewed before it was removed. If we have a policy and there's a problem with the policy, then readjust the policy. But if there's a policy for putting books in the library, it should be followed. I don't know that I answered your question very well. Sorry.
It wasn't my question. I read the question.
Here's the policy right here.
Thank you. Okay, so we had an audience member that asked for, we have 3 minutes and we'll take time for this. You get 30 seconds. This is going to be all candidates, and we're going to start with those who didn't answer a question already in this round. How can we improve relationship with the county council? So why don't we start with Mr. Demko, and we'll just go down the way. Can you use the microphone?
I'll give you the 10-second warning.
30 seconds.
I think everyone up here supports the schools, and we've heard a lot of talk about supporting teachers, about doing everything we can for the schools, make sure they get what they need. In order to do that, we have to elect the county council that agrees with that, and we have to elect the county executive that agrees with that. So my advice is to elect county councilmen who will support the schools.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you're up next.
Currently, the relationship that we have with the county council is a good one. It's improved over the years, and I think we have to continue to collaborate and meet with them and make them understand the needs of the school system, what we're doing, how we're trying to meet the needs of our society, as well as knowing that they are the ones who have the purse strings, but to make certain that they are aware that what they hope to end up is a good product from the school system so that those kids can come back and get back to society.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis?
I agree with Mr. Brown. We do have a better relationship with county council than we have had in the past. However, we meet with them quarterly. I feel that we need to meet with county council monthly. I feel that the board members need to be able to speak with each individual county council member. We need to express our things under the guidance of executive leadership, and I feel we need to work on the main things that matter in our county moving forward.
Thank you. Ms. Sothowski, you're up next, but while we're getting ready for that, Mr. Guy, Mr. Murray, Mr. Angela, would you sit down so that we'll do this a little faster?
Mr. Murray, here.
Ms. Sothowski.
Share this mic.
There are only a couple of county council members who are difficult to work with, and a couple of them are not running for re-election. So I think if we are we look at who is running for the county council and we put different people in, I think it's going to be an entirely different council. We do meet with them quarterly. Our superintendent meets with the county exec monthly.
Thank
And
you. Mr.
I have a
Angela, we're
good
coming to you.
relationship.
All right. I definitely think
30 seconds.
I definitely think good communication with the council would definitely go far. As long as, since the council sort of gives a citizens' take on local government, if we're making sure that we're communicating with our constituents, which is the same constituents they have, it'll go far if you can communicate effectively with the council to make sure that we have similar goals, that our goals aren't separate, that they're going together.
Thank you. If you want to rotate, and we'll come here to Mr. Murray.
I don't want to sound repetitive, but I am going to state that I do think our rapport in working with the county council certainly has improved a lot and has gotten closer. But like anything, there's always room for improvement. Some of the ways that it could happen is we could increase, instead of our quarterly meetings, have a monthly meeting, has been said. But I also think for all board members to be able to talk, and most importantly, invite them to come into our schools someday as a tour. That's what it takes, visual perception. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Guy?
30 seconds isn't a long time.
And you just used 10.
So the council has a tough job, right? Everybody every day asks them for money, and so when the school meets with them quarterly, they're like, oh, they're going to ask me for the largest percentage of our budget, and they seem to be down about that. I think that communicating with them more frequently, like Tanya talked about, and also making the conversation, like I wonder how often we've asked them how we can help them as well, and where we could show them what their investment will mean in the students when we meet with them, I think would improve that communication. So.
Thank you.
Sounds like a really difficult question, but it comes down to everybody needs to be adults. We need to realize we're working for the betterment of the children. So there's 14 people who need to act like the adults in the room and look out for the children rather than look out for their own self-interests. Pretty simple.
Thank you. I've lost track. Ms. Siggers, I think, and Mr. Palmer are two that haven't. Anybody? Ms. Ms. Miller, did you speak to that?
Do we all get a shot, or just the ones that have already?
Everybody gets a chance at this last question
30
about
seconds.
the council.
Ms. Siggers.
I try to impress upon our students that they're an investment, and I try to get them to understand that they need to invest in themselves just as we need to invest in them. And I would impress the same thing upon the county council members, whom I believe do understand that we're all an investment. Our students are an investment, our schools are an investment, and it just try to support the systems. Just as I said earlier, teamwork makes schools work. So we ought to all believe in the investment in our education system.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer.
2015, I came on the school board. Everybody was doing this, button heads. Nobody talked to one another. County council didn't talk to anybody. School superintendent didn't talk. Nobody was talking. That was our first big problem we had to overcome. We've done that. We can talk to our councilmen or our delegates at any time, any day. We know them by first name. I've always gotten good cooperation out of them, and they do support our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malone?
So, as everyone has said that's on the board, our relationship has improved, and I think the way to make it even better is change to a monthly meeting between the president of the council, vice president, chairman, vice chairman of the board, superintendent, and the county executive all in the same room. Then the next month you can send different board members, different council members, but there's been many times when the executive and the council aren't on the same page through the years. Then we're caught in the middle, so do it this way and just change up how we're meeting with them. But communication is the key.
Thank you. Anybody I missed that, for that one question? We're over time. I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to.
Can I just say one quick thing? I liked that John Palmer pointed out what is on teachers' plates. And I think it would be good if county council had that same view, had that same opportunity to see, shadow a teacher for the day. And then maybe they would understand what the board is trying to do.
Thank you. Mr. Arby?
I just wanted to add that impressing the county council on the importance of human capital investment. This is the best investment you can make. Let me give an example. Dr. Sophia Shakur is one of the 15 neurosurgeons in the country. She, product of public school system, she elected not to live somewhere else but to come back to the community. Think about the impact. And multiply by the number of students you can do. There is no dollar amount you can actually put to what the investment that the county can do in the education. So you can never go wrong investing in education.
Thank you. And thank you all for your participation today. Before you sit down, before you go, I would like you to raise your hand if you are in the at-large candidate.
One hand, Aaron.
One hand, Aaron. Mr. Guy. Thank you.
And you have a chance to vote for 2 at-large candidates. So the candidates are Demko, Ennis, Guy, Murray, and Siggers.
So if you are a candidate in District 1,
So Mr. Brown and Mr. Angela.
if you are a candidate in District 2,
Ms. Miller, Mr. Malone, and Ms. Groves.
if you are a candidate in District 3,
Professor Arvey, Ms. Lewis, Mr. Plotz is not here, and Ms. Sothowski. And then Mr. Palmer.
No,
so they're
Mr.
4.
Plotz is
Oh.
4.
Mr. Plotz and Ms. Sophowski.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Ms. Groves.
No.
So it's only 3 of
So
us.
she's 2.
Okay. So which
So
one?
now to District 4.
And I'm the only one that's here.
Ms.
Yeah.
Sothowski and Mr. Plotz.
No, Mr. Plotz
So
comes in.
then District 5, Mr. Palmer, and there's someone else, right?
Mr. Blanc, right?
Uh,
I think it's Mr. Blanc. No, that's
No, it's
District
not
4.
Mr. Blanc.
It's Mr. Blanc.
Is it blank? Oh.
Yes,
Okay.
it's Mr. Blanc.
Mr. Blank.
Yeah, he's not here.
All right, well, thank you all for your participation today.
Thank you.